Good morning, everybody. Johnny B. Good here, located in Rock Springs, Wyoming. The local time here, it is 9:46. Temperature is a beautiful 41 degrees. As you can see, the weather here is just absolutely fascinating, fabulous, beautiful, and well, what else can I say? Anyway, today, once again, it is Thursday, March 26, 2015. Once again, I am on my way to the city of Industry, California. We are now just only 856 miles to our destination in Minuteman. Our scheduled delivery date is Saturday at 7 a.m., but I figured we'll be there sometime about noon tomorrow. So far so good. Alright, it seems like I've been getting a lot of questions about where I come from, how long I've been driving, the types of equipments and companies I drove for and drove, whatnot, and where I've been, and well, it's kind of funny to say this all over again because I have done so many videos of this in the past, but I guess I realized that they're buried, so long ago. So I guess I'll have to do a reintroduction again. Alright, to begin with, I was born and raised in the Philippines, in the island of Mindanao, and I grew up in a very small island off the island of Mindanao, in the island of Camiguin Island. First time that my father was born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. My dad was an American, born and raised in Sheboygan, whom he lived in the Philippines for about 45 years. He was very fluent in our dialect, and he loved it over there. Alright, the first time that he brought us here in the United States was back in 1979. We lived here in 79 until about 84. Then he got homesick and we traveled back to the Philippines again. And I continued to live there until about 1990. So from 84 to 1990, I lived in the Philippines. Finished high school. Never went to college. I did go to vocational schools. Which brings up a question. Someone asked me yesterday, do you need a high school diploma or a GED to be able to be a truck driver? Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. Forgive me for the lack of information, but I'm sure you can get that somewhere else. If not, you can just randomly call any of these companies and ask the recruiter, right? Alright, so from 1990, I find myself back in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I think I was at the age of 23. And I find myself working in warehouses, dairy warehouses, or dairy plants, making cheese and whatnot. Basically, I was with Manpower, I think it is, temporary staffing, where they sent us just about everywhere, and most of the time they sent us in dairy production lines. And I worked there for, I don't know, 8 months or so, or less. Then I saw these ads on TV, about truck driving. What a glorious, fabulous, glamorous, you can be rich real quick ads on TV. So, hey, I went to truck driving school. And I went to diesel truck driving school in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin for 3 weeks. And what else? So I did that. The first trucking company I ever worked for was CRST. They're out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. But I was out of Schererville, Indiana terminal. I did that for about 8 months. First as a student driver, then a co-driver, and somehow 8 months later I called it quits. As you see, back then you can quit and you can quit and get a job as often as you can. It didn't really matter. It's not like today where it permanently goes on your record, your CSA score and all that stuff. And I also had the option of whether to work or not. I had a very wealthy father whom I could mooch on. So anyway, I worked for 8 months. I never really had a need to work. I just went to work when I got bored. Whenever the itch got back, and so I went trucking again, quit again. Oh, I've done that for so many times. Let's see. The second company I worked for, most of the companies that I worked for after that are long, long gone. And it's always been a pattern for me. It's like not by design. It's always been like 8 months and that was it. That's all I could handle. And I tell you what, the first 8 months of trucking, I literally cried my eyes out. I hated it. Then began the love and hate relationship with truck driving. You see, I come from a culture of surrounded by friends. I mean, Philippine culture is close-knit. It's not uncommon for us to have friends and stay friends from grade school all the way up to, to lifetime. It's not like here in the States where I recently talked to somebody, I think it was Matt, that he's only got one really close friend in life, and even then, that guy moved away, so he doesn't really have that close of a friend. Now you see back home in the Philippines, we are just, man, we talk about the level of friendship. It's beyond belief. Anyway, so my point is, it's like this: from surrounded by people, surrounded by close friends, to coming here and absolutely knowing nobody, with no friends. It was hard. It was a very hard adjustment period for me. And I don't know. I just, and I wasn't, well, I'm still not. I wasn't a good student, a good driver either. I guess I'm still not until today. But I was a lot worse back then. So yeah, once again, I would work and quit, and I've done that for so many times. And the type of equipment, the only thing that I ever drove for other than a reefer or a dry box is a flatbed. That's all I've ever done. No doubles, no tankers. So, and yeah, I drove for a company called WOMPCO, W-O-M-P, WOMPCO. Yeah, WOMPCO. They were out of Ben Wheeler, Texas, to whom they were leased to Landstar Liggett. And once again, I did that for 8 months. Absolutely hated the tarping part. Ugh. Man. Fast forward, well, until the year 2000, when my father died here in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. It was always his wishes to be laid to rest back home in Camiguin Island. And so my brother and I brought his remains back home to where he is resting in his property right now. And that's when my truck driving career really started. Because when my father died, well, let's just say the faucet all dried up. That's when Johnny B. Good had to grow up real fast. That's when all the responsibility came. I'm not getting into the details of inheritance and all that. Well, there wasn't any, and not much anyway. And very, very complicated life story, so I'm not going to get into it. Suffice to say that the year 2000, that's when I started working, and I think I drove for J.B. Hunt. They were out of Houston, Texas. I also lived in Houston, Texas for 8 months. Absolutely hated it. Although at the time I didn't know I had so many friends from back home that lived in Houston that could have prepared me to live in better places. But my wife and I just kind of shot the dart in Texas or Houston, and wherever the dart landed, we went there, and we found ourselves downtown Houston, where Well, let's just say the neighborhood wasn't all that good, and my kids were always locked in the house. It was a bad neighborhood. So all said and done, we moved back to Wisconsin, and I think after that I worked for Nordic Express, which is out of business, long gone. And I was working for a guy whom I worked for a long before that. And he sold his company to Well Companies. And well, one day I drove into the yard and came into the office, and he introduces me to a man named Bruce Thielens. I say, "Hey Bruce, meet Johnny. He's one of my best. He's a runner." So Dan kind of put a good word on me to Bruce. At that time, at that moment, I didn't know what was going on. And it turns out, and then Dan says, "Johnny, meet Bruce, our boss." I said, "What do you mean, our boss? You're my boss." He says, "Nope. Starting today, I sold the company. He's the owner." So, and at that time, I was actually working for a Filipino friend of mine who had a truck. And so I wasn't really directly working for Dan. I was working for this guy, Ricardo, who was leased to Nordic Express. And I was on this dedicated load from Green Bay, Wisconsin to all the way to Boston, New Hampshire, Connecticut. And I didn't know it at the time that this load paid. Now this is back in the year 2002. This load back then paid over $3 a mile. I mean, talk about gravy load. Ooh, it was a gold mine. And before Dan sold the company, me and Ricardo had this little issues about expenses and bickering and all this. I told Ricardo, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And says, when I get back to the yard, this is it, I'm done. Then Ricardo suggested that I should buy the truck from him. And Dan says, "Well, Johnny, you should buy that truck and I'll keep you on this account. You'll be on a dedicated load." And then he told me how much this load paid. And I said, "Dan, I don't, me, I'm a dummy. I don't know anything about trucking. And especially being an owner-operator." He says, "Yeah, go ahead and take it. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of the rest." So I dove right into it. Man, am I glad I did. The first year of that account, I think I grossed $210,000. I managed to be approved on a mortgage, bought a car, which is not that Sequoia. It was actually a 4Runner that we had. And so, to make the story short, I bought the truck from Ricardo, and it was $500 a week. And then I was leased to well companies at that time. That went on for about 4 years, 3-4 years. And with the mad cow disease uprising in Canada, because the product that I was hauling was veal, and most of our product, raw product, came from Canada. And when the Canadian mad cow disease sprung up, they closed that. They shut that down for a while. And so we lost that account. I ended up taking the truck back to Ricardo, and so I transitioned from an owner-operator into a company truck, company driver. So the other day, I think I saw a placard of, when it tells you how long the employees are been with the company. I think I saw, a little tag. I think I belong somewhere around the 5th or 6th year employee with well, and but that's just as an employee. All in all, I have been with well for over 11 years, I guess. I've got 5 kids. 3 of them are out of the house. 1 of them is back home in the Philippines. My eldest son is in New York City. He's the one that went to the U.S. Army, and turns out he didn't like it. Now he wants to get back in it. My second eldest daughter lives in California. In fact, not too far from Bellflower, I guess. Yeah, Bellflower, California, which is, I think it's only like 14 miles from City of Industry. And then we have Jackie and AJ living at the house, and of course, Tampers. And that's pretty much it. Alright, I think I've said enough, so we'll catch you guys later. Peace.